players who have fought really again to get to this spot. Really strong play.
I don't think this game's anywhere near over.
We are ready to get this match underway.
To Lock and Load 2014. We're back at the Iron Gauntlet Championship coverage, and we're about to start the quarterfinals match.
That's right, and like we said before the break, our quarterfinals match here features Jay Larsen from Idaho, U.S. versus Keith Christianson. Jay Larsen is a veteran of WARMACHINE and HORDES, has been playing for 9 years, ranked 5th in the Iron Gauntlet, and he has been playing Signar exclusively throughout all of his Iron Gauntlet plays. His lists he brought today are very similar to the ones that he took several championships with, several championships, including winning the Iron Gauntlet qualifier at Gen Con with a Siege Stormwall combination list against his opponent at that time. Jay is a well-known member of Chain Attack as a host and a member of Team Muse from Muse on Minis.
And his opponent, Keith Christianson, he was actually the first seed for the Iron Gauntlet Championship today. Keith is best known perhaps for playing Lich Lord Asphyxius. That is his favorite Warcaster, so that comes as no surprise. He's played him quite a bit throughout the Iron Gauntlet qualifier events, and he also, though, often uses other factions to round out his possibilities and his options. In today's games, he'll be playing Lich Lord Asphyxius and Gristle, the Marshal of the Creels. So switching not only from different play styles, but switching significantly in what these factions bring to the table. Keith is only been playing for 4 years now, a bit shorter than some of our other competitors, but he's quickly risen to the top. He was the WARMACHINE Weekend 2012 champion, DICON 2011 champion, won the Mayhem Cups 1, 2, and 3. So this is a guy who's really been taking WARMACHINE by storm with his Crix gameplay and also his versatility.
That's right, but he's got a tough matchup today in the form of Jay Larsen's Haley 2 list, which does some interesting things on the typical Haley 2 build. So we have Major Victoria Haley with a Squire, her character Warjack Thorn, a Bonded Centurion, and then we see a host of Mercenary Solos units as well as a mixture of Signar units. Anastasia Debray, Gorman DeWolf, a Journeyman Warcaster, Alexia Cianor, and the Risen, Rupert Carvalho, the Piper of Ord, an Arcane Tempest Gunmage unit with the Gunmage Officer unit attachment, Iris, Angel of Retribution, and Stormblades with 3 Storm Gunners and the Stormblade UA. So an interesting mix between mercenary units and Signar units. Some choices which are not currently very popular in the build, but I think Jay will use to an exceptional use here in his matchup against Keith.
Well, and Keith brings Lich Lord Asphyxius with a Night Wretch, a Helldiver. The list normally includes Cankerworm, but Cankerworm has been swapped out using the Specialist rules, and the Ripjaw has taken its place, presumably to get a second Arc Node into the list, but could be anything really. I haven't had a chance to talk with Keith yet about why he made that substitution, but we've got a Ripjaw in the battle group instead of Cankerworm. We do also have a full unit of Bane Knights, a full unit of Bane Thralls with the unit attachment, a full unit of Blood Witches with, or no, a minimum unit of Blood Witches with their unit attachment, a minimum unit of Bile Thralls, Tartarus, Gorman DeWolf, Saxon Auric, and 2 War Witch Sirens.
The matchup that they will be playing in today for scenario on this quarterfinals match is Close Quarters. Close Quarters matchup features 2 flags. The goal of the players is to dominate either their flag or control or dominate the enemy flags. You can see there on the map the placement of those flags is 21 inches up from the table end, 18 inches in from each side. 5 control points are needed for a scenario victory, or of course Warlock Warcaster Assassination will also end the game in victory.
So we have already today seen Warcaster Warlock Assassination victories, we have seen scenario victories, and we have even seen one Death Clock timeout victory. So players need to be mindful of all of these different variables at all times.
In addition, tables not being featured for our primary match today between Jay and Keith also include Daniel Naus versus Colin Hill, Kading versus Jake Van Meter, and Charles Aerosmith versus Jason Watt. And we'll be checking in with those matches as they go, giving you updates just as we did in the preliminary rounds. But right now, it looks like our players are underway to begin this game as Keith finishes his deployment in front of us. And I am ready for one heck of a matchup between these two competitive players who have both won an Iron Gauntlet qualifier match under their belt. Jay at Gen Con and Keith at our first one. Keith also went to the TempleCon qualifiers and placed second there, losing out in the end to Charles Aerosmith in that amazing rake leap headbutt scenario that we talked about earlier in the matchup between Charles Aerosmith and
Keith Christianson.
Excuse me. James Morehouse is actually what I was thinking about, the match we just saw.
Oh, sorry. I missed the switch over there. So an interesting thing to note about the first place in the qualifier at Lock and Load here last year was that Keith was playing Major Haley. And now here we see him again at Lock and Load. And there's Major Haley. And she seems to be on the wrong side of the table.
On the opposite side of the table here. So our players have shook hands, and Jay is taking his first turn of this quarterfinals matchup. So we see focus allocation, one focus going to both Thorn and the Centurion. Thorn takes the first turn. See some advances there.
I think those were some telekinesis.
Oh, telekinesis, yes. We see Haley advancing to move onto that hill there, using a die to stabilize her. You see Thorn running.
Gets a bit more forward on the hill there.
Jay has the Centurion run next. You see the Centurion moving further thanks to the bond ability from Major Victoria Haley, which grants it additional movement, additional plus 2 inches.
And here come the Gun Mages.
Gun Mages taking a run order to get up the field so that they can take some shots here in the following turns.
Wants to be careful with his positioning here with the Gun Mages, knowing that there are arc nodes on both flanks on the Crick side of the table. So those arc nodes could be running forward to arc spells this coming turn. So the front ones you can see are nice and spread out, while the ones towards the back of the hill are a little bit closer together.
So we've seen Arcane Shield from the Journeyman Warcaster onto the Centurion, bringing it up to a nice healthy arm 24. Storm Blades get a run order, advancing forward as well, 10 inches, keeping pace with that Centurion.
And here we see the benefits of the double arc nodes on Keith's side of the table. He can force those Storm Blades to spread out and force the Gun Mages to spread out because you don't know where the spells are coming from.
Jay finishing up his movement here, keeping those Storm Blades a little more clustered than I would expect, considering Asphyxious 2's AoE abilities with his spell list, including Death Knell. Oh, we see Haley take a little spill there. Jay kind of expected that to occur. Was hoping it wouldn't because of his die that he put there for balance. See him replace and then put the Gun Mage back in position. Both our players are laughing a bit about that.
I think we might not have mentioned that Eris, the Angel of Retribution, moved up and stayed hidden away behind that obstruction there.
Mm-hmm. We see Anastasia Debray racing forward, Alexia and the Risen moving up into the back ranks so that Alexia can take as much effect as she can from any casualties that Jay may suffer on Keith's next round. We see Haley fall over one more time. Jay keeps catching that spear as he tries to move around her. Jay's going to switch her out with a proxy base there. Probably a smart move at this point. Jay's taking great care with painting those models. It'd be upsetting to see her get chipped too much from repeated knockover. The Piper of Ord advances up, declares his Dirge of Mist for
heroic
call for Fearless and Tough on the Stormblades. Keith calls for no focus allocation. He advances the Bane Thralls. Getting a run
for
order.
The Bane Thralls. They are going to take up position across from the Stormblades here. Some of them taking the hill to gain an elevation bonus, but they do have stealth, which often can be very helpful. In this particular matchup, not quite as helpful as usual. The Stormblades will get nice and close if they assault, so won't really care too much about the assault.
They will care about that +2 defense on the hill, though, being not the greatest of shots with those Stormglaives.
True enough.
One of the things that's interesting about this matchup is we're seeing a lot of troops on the field, especially on Keith's side. This is a typical classic example of Keith's list, though. He plays very heavy on large model count, has become very well versed at moving those models quickly and efficiently, so to not suffer some of the time problems that we were talking about in some of the other matches in terms of having to move a lot of those models.
Here we now see the Bane Knights taking position in the trench and at the flag, running forward.
Keith is keeping them spread out enough that they won't be able to control that flag when scoring happens at the end of his next turn, but he has the benefit of an additional movement turn, basically an extra activation, before scoring will begin, whereas Jay does not. Jay's going to have to move into position if he wants to jam up that flag to stop Keith from getting some early control points here.
Keith does also keep his troops very spread out. He's got to always keep in mind where his unit commander is, because as he takes casualties, if the unit commander falls and winds up moving towards one of those spread out flanks, he'll have some troops that won't be able to make attacks.
Keith right now is humming the Jaws theme as he advances the dug-in Helldiver, burrowing through the ground very ominously.
You can see that silvery token there, the burrow marker for the Helldiver.
Keith considering the TK threat from Major Victoria Haley here as he advances Asphyxius.
He's spending some focus here to put out some Caustic Mist.
You'll notice that the featured Iron Arena table right now has a constant spectator that was left here by James. Wally the Wombat is continuing to watch these proceedings and help our judges out in making sure that these players play a clean and fun game. You see a confirmation on the range for the Stormblade units from Keith. Jay explaining how the range effects balance out in that unit with range 10 on the Storm Gunners, assault range 6 on the Stormblades if they're within 5 inches of the leader. Overall, a lot of different factors to consider when trying to determine that unit's threat range.
So 2 Caustic Mist clouds go out in this particular case. And then we move on to the Bile Thralls, who gain a run order. Run forward to take up position behind those Caustic Clouds.
See Keith checking to keep those Bile Thralls within command range so that they can activate and benefit from any kind of spell targeting buffs that he may need to put on them at some point.
Keith is advancing his Bonejacks, his Arc Nodes, fairly conservatively. He does have War Witch Sirens by them, so anytime he wants to run them forward, he can use Power Booster from the War Witches rather than assigning them focus from Asphyxius. So it gives him a very flexible way to play his battle group.
You see a run from Gorman DeWolf, repositioning over to the opposite flank with the Bane Knights.
And last but not least, we see a run from the Satixis Blood Witch unit to take up positions a bit closer to the battle.
And as Keith pointed out to Jay, since he wasn't moving near their full movement distance, he didn't bother to measure the movement, just kind of placed them where he felt they fit without going over. So with that, Keith passes his turn, and Jay takes over the lead at the top of round 2. It's an interesting position Jay finds himself in here. He's definitely outnumbered in terms of model count. He's got to contend with Asphyxious' 2s. Impressive feat, the Lich Lord's ability to bring back models he destroys. Keith considers his move. He's going to go ahead and take an accumulator circle off of the Squire to give himself an extra focus. So he'll have 2 left to use throughout the match. Interested to see what Jay will expect here as he measures his control area, looking at...
The Centurion does provide a nice counter in certain ways to Asphyxious' feat. Usually you see a Lich Lord Asphyxious feat that just destroys multiple Warjacks or War Beasts, or in some cases even the opposing Warcaster or Warlock. If that Centurion, who's bonded for an effective move speed of 6, puts up his Polarity Shield, then you're talking about the feat becomes useless against the Centurion. The models must charge during Spectral Legion, and since the Centurion's Polarity Shield says they can't charge that model, that's going to keep him pretty safe from retaliation for a time.
You see Jay considering right now with Keith kind of bantering back at him as he considers his turn, having a little bit of fun as he watches the preparation here for what Jay has in store. You see Jay placing out his focus here. He has, he has 8,
the Hobby Lounge is going to shut down at 5 o'clock.
Thanks to the accumulator circle from the Squire. Jay does a quick check on the Caustic Mist Cloud ability with the 1 point of auto damage.
And gather your critiques from the studio. So that's the P3 Studio Lounge closing at 5 p.m. until 6.
Nothing in particular on Jay's side of the table that's immune to corrosion and able to walk through those clouds without a care.
No, but if he's considering taking Thorn in to try to arc some spells into Asphyxious, he doesn't really have to worry about the 1 point for sure.
No, in that case, he's just got to worry about the Bane Knights on the other side of that cloud.
See, Arc Shield was upkept on the Stormblades, or sorry, was not upkept. It looks like on the Centurion.
I think the wooden shield token there in front of the Stormblades is the Arcane Shield. Maybe.
It drops it.
It was, but it... So no Arcane Shield at the moment on the Stormblades.
So Journeyman Warcaster has 3 focus on him currently. Keith asks Jay what's going on with the dropping of Arcane Shield and if he's in trouble of getting killed this turn. Jay informs him that nothing that awesome is probably going to happen this turn. So I'm interested to see what Jay's plan is right now. I would have expected keeping that Arcane Shield up would have been extremely useful to him, especially as you pointed out. But as you pointed out, the Centurion can't be charged, so...
It might also be going over onto Thorn. We talked about the potential of putting Thorn up into the cloud to start arcing some spells. Putting a Arcane Shield on Thorn would allow it to take a lot less damage from the counterattack of whatever survives the spell onslaught.
See an allocation of 1 to the Centurion and 1 to Thorn. Keith is listening to the Scarface soundtrack to pump himself up. He seems pretty happy with that. You see him utilizing his phone there as Jay considers out his turn. Jay takes back the 2 focus that he allocated, so he's clearly thinking of a new plan here. See 1 allocation to Thorn, and that leaves Haley with 7 on the rest of it. Or 8 on Haley, excuse me, because of that accumulator circle from the Squire. You see the Gun Mages advance forward, likely going to take some pistol shots here, some Mage Lock shots at several of Keith's models. It's always tough to play against Asphyxious 2 because you know every model that you kill is just feeding his impressive feat. As you pointed out, the DC, Jay does have some answers to that in terms of denying charges on some of his more important models like the Centurion.
Well, and we've also seen earlier some ways to remove from play enemy models. Jay isn't packing much of that or any of that really in his army list. But that's also a great way to get around the Spectral Legion, is if you're removing a lot of the models that would come back from ever being able to.
So we see a snipe shot, call first, hits and kills a Bile Thrall. We see a field promotion to the other unit leader. We see a snipe shot at the other Bile Thrall. Checks line of sight really quick. He cannot see it, so he will have to pick a different target for that gun mage. Hits the Bile Thrall, no problem. Fails to eliminate it.
At arm 16's in a pretty good spot, because while there's good chances of taking them out, it's nowhere near a guarantee.
Jay now considering his next shots. You see he marks the models that have fired with a red bead to make sure that he doesn't go back on it. We see a Thunderbolt at that Bane Knight in base to base with the flag. He does hit. He's pushed back 1 inch. And the damage roll eliminates him on an 8. So Vengeance is now triggered. So the Bane Thralls will be making their 3-inch advance and a melee attack against anything they can get within range. Looks like some of the Bane Knights might be able to get to the frontmost gun mages. So now Jay was able to eliminate the model that was blocking the shot he wanted to take on that Bile Thrall in the back. Hits and eliminates it.
With another roll that would not have killed a Bane Knight.
Correct. Jay is doing very well at rolling 6s right now for his damage rolls. We see a snipe shot. He's going to snipe at a Bane Thrall. Gets to ignore stealth.
But out of range.
To the Gun Mage UA, but is out of range. See a snipe on a Bane Knight. Looks like he's just a hair good, just a hair bad. This might come up. So he is just out of range. See another snipe shot going at that Bane Thrall on the hill. So because they're both on elevation, there's no elevation bonus. Jay notices thanks to those bees they already fired with the initial declaration, so he switched it to one of the gun mages that hadn't fired, checked range, it was good. 11 on the damage roll, make sure that it hits and kills, but tough happens, and that Bane Thrall is knocked down.
Good old tough. We talked about it last game in particular with the Runes of War theme force really making a difference. But even when it's just one unit, those tough rolls can have a big impact. Or in some cases, they can fall a bit flat, and you wind up not really making any of them.
It's especially difficult with the Bane Thralls because their unit standard Dead Rise just lets them get right back up, so they suffer no repercussions unless you can remove that model effectively. We see Thorn advance into the Caustic Mist, takes his damage, but now can see through those clouds for Haley to arc spells. We see an Arcane Bolt at a Bile Thrall. Hits easily on an 18 and eliminates the Bile Thrall.
Though Major Haley has all kinds of various advantages over Captain Haley, one thing she does not have is Chain Lightning.
No.
So you gotta do it bit by bit. Got nice long arcane bolt shots thanks to that good old range 12, but no easy way to deal with lots of spread out enemy models like Chain Lightning gives you.
CJ just plinking away at that Bile Thrall unit. Has one more Arcane Bolt, has now cast 4 Arcane Bolts, checking line of sight to see if you can see that last Bile Thrall. It looks like it's good from this angle.
Yeah, it looks good from here, but the judges are right over the table and can see it a lot better than we can.
So it is determined line of sight is there. Jay hits easily and eliminates the last Bile Thrall, so there are no more Bile Thralls for him to worry about. Reaction drive from Thorn allows him to move back 3 inches.
While that won't save him from all of those Bane Knights when they charge, it will probably save him from most, if not all, of the Vengeance attacks. Might be one.
We see Haley advance now after doing all of her casting. Jay measuring his control area. I'm expecting that we will see her feet potentially at this point.
It's a tough choice.
It
could be this turn, but I would probably wait for the next turn.
He's He could potentially save Thorn with an early feat here, but he would definitely not catch everything he'd want to at this point. Jay asking what could go wrong with this plan in a voice that says that he thinks there's plenty that could go wrong here. Jay moves 1 more inch, trying to get as much as possible within her feet. He goes 1 more inch. He's got 1 inch left of advance if he wants it as he measures his control area after each inch.
Well, at this point, it's safe to say he's going to feet.
Yeah.
He is.
Move that far forward, you kind of have to.
Yep.
Jay goes his final inch forward to try to get as much as possible within the area of his feet. And he feats. See that token placed on the ground, and
no particular targets for Haley's hand cannon.
A majority of Keith's army is now locked under Haley's feet. We'll have to forfeit either its movement or activation next turn, and will be forced to activate in order that Jay chooses so he can avoid. We see the Centurion move forward, use Polarity Shield like you expected to deny charges against it. We see Gorman DeWolf on Jay's side, since we have 2 Gormans on the field, advance forward. Expect to see a smoke cloud here potentially. And there's a smoke cloud. Block line of sight to Haley on that side as well. So despite her advanced forward position, Haley is fairly safe at this point between a combination of feet and line of sight blocking.
Well, and of course the very limited amount of attacks that Keith can produce at any sort of range. Very melee-oriented force.
We see an attack.
You don't often see Eris with her rat of 9
miss
her target, but thanks to elevation, just shy.
So Rupert Carvalho advances forward, makes the Stormblades tough 1 more time with heroic call. Stormblades now run forward just to get into position, knowing that Keith is going to be unable to answer them next turn thanks to the effects of his feat. He's denied Keith the use of a charge. He doesn't have to worry about any kind of vengeance movement. So moving those Stormblades into position for good assaults next turn, forcing Keith to determine how he's going to play out.
It looks like they're close enough to gain the control point.
I would imagine that Jay would
of the next turn
have definitely considered that to force Keith to either put his models into poor position to contest the flag or cede the first control point to him. We see Alexi and the Risen moving up, kind of clustering around the Journeyman's focus points there. The Squire runs within 5 inches of Haley. Back onto the hill. See the Journeyman Warcaster move 6 inches and cast Arcane Shield onto Haley. So there's why he dropped it, to put it on Haley, give her a little extra defense.
Well, that Haley is looking like she's in really good shape there. She's got a Cloud, an unchargeable Centurion, and Thorn all in the path. And she has Arcane Shield, so we're looking at a caster with great defense, solid armor, and no line of sight. A caster kill now would surprise me.
We see a check for feet. Jay once again catching that Squire that's on the hill. So we see the feet all the way up. Definitely a good range when you add that extra 2 inches from the Squire from Haley and 18 inches. It's a massive area that she can just shut down on her turn. So Jay will be determining the order in which Keith will be activating his models caught under the feet.
So first ones to go are the Blood Witch unit with the Hag, I believe. That's what it looks like.
So Keith informs Jay that they're all forfeiting their actions so that they're able to advance forward as they were caught under the feet. Keith mentions that he forgot about Vengeance and he's not going to go back and do it now, but he seems to have determined that it doesn't make a huge amount of difference to his plan for this turn.
So Keith's Gorman DeWolf will be activating next. with that position, certainly choosing to forfeit action and get to move.
And you'll notice that Keith continues to hit the clock every time Jay has to decide his movement. This is really smart play here because it is Jay's decision. It is on his time. So Jake doesn't have the opportunity to take a lot of time to think about how he wants things to go without running down his own clock, which is going to be vital to everything else. So you'll notice the players hitting the clock a lot this round as they continue to do that, and Keith goes back and forth with Jay to determine what he has to activate when.
We now have the Bane Thrall unit activating, I believe. Keith's trying to figure out how best to get them to do something useful under the effects of this devastating feat. Moving forward is kind of a dangerous proposition with all of those storm blades at the ready. But moving backwards means leaving the flags uncontested for at least a couple of turns. This turn, which will be a control point, and then Jay's next turn, which will be another. Keith really given some thought here to how to best get around this feat effect. What can he do that will put him in a good position for next turn, even though he knows this turn is going to be a fairly limited offense turn for him. Really committing those Bane Thralls is an option, but one that is bound to result in significant casualties. You can only roll tough rolls so many times, but then having them fall back, just disastrous in terms of the control point situation. One possibility I'm sure he's considering is having them spread out substantially, having a few of them kind of try to get in the way of the storm blades up there. He does have a nice piece of cover in that linear obstacle that might prove useful. The Jay also does not have the Stormblade Captain solo, so that linear obstacle also provides a big benefit in the regards of no models can charge over it. Relentless Charge could be handed out by a Stormblade Captain if he was around, but
he does, however, have Rupert. Which
he does have Rupert.
Will allow him to put Pathfinder on one unit, so he can overcome that, but I agree the Stormblade Captain not being there does take away that option as well.
Yeah, good call. He's got Rupert right there. He's sitting right behind the Stormblades. It wouldn't be an issue to. He's definitely close enough. That's the way to go.
For me at this point, I think it's critical that you don't allow your opponent to score on the first opportunity to score, especially when they went first. It's handing an initiative over that is just not worth the few models, the one model that Keith really has to throw in there to stop it.
So how many do you think? How many Bane Thralls should he put up there? I'm going to go with 3.
I think 3 is a safe choice. I could even see, depending on how Keith plans out his next turns, throwing in just 1. However, with a caster like Asphyxious 2, there's no reason not to throw in 3 at this point.
Right.
You might get some
fuel for the feed
anyway. I think 3 is a good number, and there's a possibility, though unlikely, that one of those 3 might be able to weather the storm of attacks that Jay's willing to throw against them. And if he throws everything against them to clear out the points, then you've really netted yourself a whole lot.
Yeah.
Keith's still considering here what he's going to do with those Bane Thralls, which have been forced to activate by the feat from Haley.
Checking the kill box, I think, since that's one of the things you're allowed to measure here.
Keith is checking. The judge does confirm. Keith is checking the kill box right now to try to get a better sense of things. You can see the clock in the view there right in front of the Iron Gauntlet trophy that's ominously looking over our players, reminding them of what they're playing for here. Keith still has 46 minutes to Jay's 39. Jay's last turn did take a little bit of time. Keith is spending a lot of time thinking here, though, so I expect their clocks will quickly become close to each other. So we see Asphyxious casting, looks like...
Could be Hellbound, potentially.
And now some Caustic Mist to try to protect himself.
I know that Keith typically likes to get Hellbound up there if and when he can. It makes the area around Asphyxious within 5 inches into rough terrain for enemy models only, which is nice and convenient. It also prevents Asphyxious from being targeted by a charge attack. So much like that Centurion on the other side of the field, we now have another model that can't be charged by the enemies. Granted, the models that like charging are on the other side of the table, but still, it's something he can upkeep for later rather than spending 3 focus in the future.
One of the interesting things here is that if Asphyxious doesn't move up, it looked like by Keith's measuring, Asphyxious is dangerously close to that kill box.
Absolutely.
And with a lucky Thunderbolt shot, you could potentially push Asphyxious back into that kill point box. And
Keith being very careful with his positioning.
See him trying to get that
positioning of the Caustic Mist
just in the right spot here. He does have to be careful because his own models will suffer the damage point if they enter it.
Except Gorman.
Except for Gorman, who's wearing that nice little chemical lab coat. Gorman, who's already activated, though, probably won't have to worry about it this round.
What about other Gorman?
Other Gorman could run right through it, potentially throw a blind bomb on Asphyxious. However, I think Gorman's a little out of position for that, even as speedy as he is at this point.
Yeah. There's also a lot of Bane Knight.
See a proxy
models
base
in the way.
Getting put down. Another proxy base being put down, so Keith can put that Caustic Mist template down perfectly. So as long as he toes in those 2 Bane Knights, they'll be able to move through the mist with no major problem. Keith is having a problem doing that, though, because he has to put down all of these different proxy bases. You see him marking the base there so that he can set it down. But he wants those models to start just toe into that cloud so that when they move through, it's only entering or ending activation within it.
Well, and to do so effectively, he's got to really think about where are these models going to be, not just right now, but after they get a chance to activate. And what else will have activated before that? Will they be able to get where he wants them to go and get out of that cloud?
Some very careful checking of line of sight here. He seems happy with that placement. He now places his second Caustic Mist marker. Again, checking line of sight vector points. So Keith is attempting to get the clouds slightly more than 2 inches away from Asphyxious.
So the Bane Knights are also, of course, going to forfeit their action since they don't have any targets in melee range, and they're going to advance forward. They're 5 inches, being careful not to step in their own Lich Lord's caustic clouds there. Engaging some of the gun mages there, possibly engaging Thorn. It's pretty
certainly
close.
Looks close.
Tough to call from up here at the.
And we didn't see a key measurement, so.
Yep. Once again, spreading those models out pretty significantly. There's enough at the front there to hold some guys back, but there are also others far from the front lines.
Keith playing a very smart move there. We talked about the Thunderbolt knocking Asphyxious out of the kill box. He actually placed the Bane Knight immediately in base-to-base contact behind Asphyxious to stop the push immediately. So
push effects can be very powerful, but it's also a great counter to use a backstop model We see this in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different factions, but when you've got access to push effects or your opponents do, you may very well want to use a model activation to make sure that pushes don't adversely affect your plans.
See another Bane Knight move behind Asphyxious to double up his push blocking abilities there. Keith really doesn't want to suffer the penalties for getting pushed out of that kill box. See Jay select the next model, which is going to be the Bone Jack on that side, the Night Wretch.
The Night Wretch, yep.
Which advances forward. Takes a point from walking into the Caustic Mist.
I think it's fairly safe to say that trading 1 point of damage for 2 points of defense for a round, well, against some targets anyway, is worth the effort.
Jay now selecting the next unit Keith's going to have to activate here. Selects the Bane Thralls now. See the Bane Thralls advance to contest that flag.
Contesting the flag, engaging Eris, but we'll see. We'll see if our guess of having 3 of them move forward and kind of get in the path of the Signarin forces is right, or
he's got 2 so far.
Yep, 2. Definitely going to be spread out again as we anticipated.
We see one Bane Thrall that I thought might advance forward, move back. There's the third one behind a wall. Looks like he might be just out of 4 inches by this camera angle, but it's difficult to tell.
I think the one engaging Eris is just in.
I think it looks to me like Keith got 2 of them within 4, but that one behind the linear obstacle is just behind.
Oh, yeah. That one's out. But it only takes 1 for now. On Jay's turn, if he can clear out the ones that are close enough, it'll net him that control point.
So we see Saxon Oregon being selected next.
Saxon Oryx going to simply advance forward a bit, I think, once Keith's hair moves. Warwitch Siren gets up kind of near the Night Wretch, but trying to be as safe as possible from the gun mages.
Oh, running right towards that flag potentially. Stays in the trench. See the Ripjaw. Advances into a forest.
More concealment for the Bone Jacks, keeping them at a nice def 17 from most attackers.
We see a run from the last Warwitch Siren onto the hill, and Keith is done with his difficult round 2.
But now he does have the freedom of knowing that Major Victoria Haley has used that feat up. It's no longer a worry. But Jay is in position to really capitalize here.
So Jay burns an accumulator circle from the Squire again, leaving him with 1 more to go for this game. We see a quick measurement here. There's an interesting possibility here where if Jay can get Asphyxious out of the kill box, he could win on scenario points by dominating Keith's flag with Haley and controlling the other flag. It's a difficult setup because of that speed bump, but it is there.
Well, where's he going to get the other control points? Because you need 5, right?
Control flag.
Yeah.
Dominate flag.
Yep.
And then kill box. He has to get kill box though.
Gotcha.
So we see Jay taking a quick measurement here. We're
thinking other possibility, which
thinking
is
of a charge here.
To me, that sounds and looks pretty good. Haley's got the movement that she could take out some of those front Bane Knights. And she's also got access to tools like telekinesis, temporal acceleration, She can give her Centurion a whole lot of focus, and it's already got +2 movement from the Bond. So that, to me, looks like the more reliable way to go here, if the range is what I think it is. And that's what he's checking here as he measures and remeasures Haley's control area.
He's certainly within, by the looks of it, he's well within the Centurion's charge range to Asphyxious.
It's just a matter of clearing the area.
Well, the other problem is that Hellbound is up, so...
right.
No charging.
The rough
He's going to have to...
And no charges. He could charge the Bone Jack, but the rough terrain is an issue.
So it looks like Jay might be keeping all of the focus for Haley at this point.
Well, the Journeyman's already declared that he is upkeeping Arcane Shield on Haley, so the Journeyman's got 2 left for probably not a whole lot.
Potentially a boosted hand cannon shot. You can't deny the effectiveness of those boosts even on the Rat 5 of the Journeyman.
Well, most of the Journeyman's targets are engaged, so you're talking about not horrific chances to hit, but not great chances to hit either due to the engaged models.
See Jay and Keith having a chuckle here as he figures out stuff. Jay's going to check some melee distance here between Thorn and just to see if he's engaged. We do see that Bay Knight was able to engage Thorn. So first things first, we see an allocation. Gives 4 to the bonded Centurion, so I think we are going to see an attempt at that charge you were talking about.
So with telekinesis and the extra speed, even with the rough terrain, a charge on the Bone Jack will get him within reach of Asphyxious.
We see a bomb thrown from Gorman at the Bane Knight. It's going to miss. He goes direction 3. There's no way it cannot clip the Bane Knight, though.
So the Acid Bomb, nice solid POW 12. A roll of 7 will destroy him quite handily.
Puts Vengeance back up on the Bane Knight. Jay saying that he hopes that that Vengeance isn't going to come to pass here.
Could be in a bit of trouble if it does, because I think the more important part than Vengeance itself is that Haley might be rather exposed at the end of this turn, depending on what else goes down.
Jay can try to, if things go awry and his plan doesn't work out, he does have a lot of Risen to put in the way. He can try to block. Oh, we're going to see Alexia go now. She's aiming a hand cannon shot, which you don't usually see.
No. She is naturally going to use a Risen to boost.
Yep. See a roll. He hits the target, which is a Bane Knight.
Alexia, not a great shot.
Boost to kill the Bane Knight. You see Keith field promoting his Bane Knight leader there, which just got capped by Alexia's hand cannon.
But the ability to boost with those Risen makes all the difference. Just as Warcaster's stats can be very deceiving, they're often, or sometimes they might seem a bit lower than they feel in the game, because those boosted rolls change the odds dramatically.
See Jay lamenting the Squire, which is now his new Bane on the hill, falling over left and right as his hand continues to catch it. Gun Mages advancing to line up some shots. 2 Gun Mages that are engaged are going to go ahead and take free strikes. See Keith rolling effectively on those Iron Gauntlet steel dice. We see a crit brutal being declared on the Bane Knight in base to the flag. Jay getting pretty animated, manages to hit, breaks armor and eliminates that Bane Knight, one of the last ones in the way. Consideration here as he lines up his next shots.
I believe he has 4 more Mage Lock shots.
Yeah, I believe that is correct. He takes no more shots. We see a shield shot on that Bane Knight. It hits, but it is enough to crack armor and eliminates another Bane Knight. And this is a quick update. We just learned that Colin Hill wins in his match versus Daniel Naus. So Colin will be advancing to the semifinal round. So congratulations to Colin. We will continue to let you know updates as players and round and matches end. Jay asking our judge Chili Winters there to help him, as Jay has a little bit of a jitters as he makes this really important move here. It's an important telekinesis. And yet another example of some excellent sportsmanship here. Just absolutely committed to being as precise as possible on this really game-defining sequence of activations.
One thing in games like this, when you get to these the quarterfinals or the semifinals, the final match of some important tournament, some big game that you want to win where prizes and titles are on the line, even though this is a war game where we're moving miniatures and throwing dice, you wind up getting a lot of adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
You wind up finding your hands shaking like that, even without realizing it. And it can kind of catch up with you a little bit. I think we saw it a little bit in the last game towards the end there as it was getting intense. The dice really mattered. A miniatures game can be a very engaging experience.
I know that even in one of the Iron Arena games I recently played, which is a super tight one between my Exelon Thexus list and a Wraithwitch Denagra list, it came down to a very important turn on my end, and I certainly had the shakes just like these guys do. So it crosses the bounds.
Even Iron Arena.
Even Iron Arena. Even the simplest of games. Like, you get really invested, you're having a blast, and you want to make sure that you're precise. So we see the charge happen from the Centurion. Measuring the Hellbound rough terrain here to make sure that Jay can get in. Jay believes he's going to make it.
And this measurement is what's going to potentially determine the outcome of this match.
So Keith confirms after doing some math and measurements with our judge that the Centurion is able to get in to piston spear range with Asphyxius. We see a shield shot, I'm sure, on the Bone Jack. So we boost a spear attack on Asphyxius.
Trying for that
sustained critical. He hits.
All right.
But he does not crit, so he's going to have to. So that Centurion also has temporal acceleration, which is going to give it a free spear shot.
And that helps explain why that charge was not, as Keith said, not even close. He's got plenty of room because he had that extra movement.
Asphyxius is left with 1 point left after that boosted roll from the piston spear. Needs a 9 to hit Asphyxius and win the game. You see Jay rubbing on his little companion there for luck.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
7,
9.
8, 9 hits, wins the game. So a charge from the Centurion, 2 piston spears to Asphyxius' Iron Lich face, and Asphyxius is down. So Jay Larsen is going to move on to our semifinal round. Congrats to both players. Keith played a great game and a tough matchup for him. And now our players, you can see them kind of discussing the outcome of the game. Keith talking about what could have happened, what different approaches could have been made.
I think at this point, Jay's probably glad he went with the charge method rather than the kill box method.
Charge method. Well, once you put those 2 Bane Knights in the way, I don't think he had a way to eliminate both.
Yeah,
so it was definitely the right move there. I was just pointing out that it's rare you see the opportunity to gain 5 control points in a single turn. So we have them talking. We got Keith talking a little bit about putting the Helldiver in front of Asphyxius and other options to try to block it. The Helldiver stayed submerged the entire game, though.
Yep. So we now have the end of this game, but we've got plenty more still to report to you coming up. We'll give you some additional details on those matches as they conclude, who's moving on, and then we'll get down to the semifinal matchups in a little while here.
So please stay with us as we come back as soon as we have more information on the different events happening here and who's going to move on to our semifinals in the World Championship for War Machine and Hordes here at the Iron Gauntlet 2014.